Welcome to part 4. I'm glad you made it, okay? I know that I've been taking a long time not really starting with the test, and some people are kind of like, hey, this guy doesn't start with the test already. But this is actually where we're going to write our first test. And the main reason I was taking long to start up with the writing of the test is because all of that blabbering that I did in the beginning might matter to some people, okay? Might make sense, might help them kind of configure their mind or set their mind in a specific form, okay? So that when we go into the actual writing of the test, we are diving deep into that and we are not speaking about anything else outside of that. So that was just me preparing you basically. Okay, with all that said and done, let's go right into it. We're gonna write our first test. Okay, let's do this here. I'm gonna come in here and basically, let's see. I think we don't need none of this. Okay, we don't need none of this. Actually, what am I doing? Let me just rather cut all of these things out. Right. Delete. Out you go. Okay. That's the first thing that I had to do. And we are now gonna come in here and say bank account, and then we're gonna say we're starting with deposit. So I'm gonna create edit class here, right click there in my folder, add new item, and I'm gonna say class, and then I'm gonna call it bank account tests. Okay, I've already explained what why I call it bank account or test. If you didn't catch that, please go to part 1 or part 2, I believe, but go to the previous videos and then you'll be able to understand why we're calling it that. Righty. So then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to now start to test this method of ours here, which is the deposit. Okay, what is the first thing that we do? Okay, we are on bank account test here. So let's start by writing our method here, public void. And I have explained this. If I have not, pardon me, but our method will need to be public and they will need to be void because they shouldn't return any value, and they need to be public in a sense that all the test method by convention needs to be public, okay? Void means it doesn't return any value, so we're not going to return any value, okay? Then the convention of writing our test is basically as simple as this. What are we testing? Let me put it here so you guys can see. So what are we testing? That's the first thing. And then we have, what is the scenario that we testing, okay? Let me, just my OCD kicking in there, okay. What is the scenario that we testing? And what is the expected outcome, okay, or results? That's basically that. So when we name our test method, we would like to actually do something of this nature. We'd like to conform to this here. Mainly because if you conform to this, it kind of makes your test meaningful. Like your test names become meaningful. And with them becoming meaningful, they tell us, by me not knowing what your production code is supposed to be doing, by me looking at your test name, the naming convention, it kind of tells me what you're testing and what's supposed to happen. And I think this is time for tip number 1, okay, or rather benefit number 1 of unit testing. They add documentation to your production code. What do I mean by that? Let's go. For example, what are we testing? I'm gonna go in here and then we look, okay? We know that we're testing the bank account. That's a system under test. So, but we're not testing the entire bank account in this case. We're testing deposit. Just like we spoke about the car, we are testing part of the car, not the entire car, okay? And part of that functionality of the car was just starting up the car, okay? So the same here. We're not testing the entire bank account. We're testing just the deposit, okay? Then I'm gonna move here. So we're testing deposit. That's the first thing. What am I testing? And then we're saying, what is the scenario? Okay? So we come in here. How many scenarios do we have? We can say if amount is equal to 0, then it should do that. And if amount is equal to -1, whatever, you can do that. Okay? Then If we pass all of this, the amount is not equal to 0 and it's not equal to 1, meaning it's anything above 1 or 1 and above, okay? Then we'll take that and add it to the balance. I'm going to start with this here because I'm a positive person in a sense, so to say, okay? So we need to start with a positive scenario. So the reason being, you cannot test what you don't know, okay? So imagine testing all the negatives and meanwhile the actual positive is not working. So you just wasted your time, okay? Let's start off by testing if the application or whatever it is that we're testing is doing what it's supposed to do. Then all the other negative scenarios around it will come after, because then at least we know that this portion is working, okay? Thank you very much. Let's go there. So we're going to say we are testing, so we know if the amount is greater than however much here, okay, then it's supposed to do whatever. So let's say, for example, now we have a minimum of about 10 Rand. Okay, let's rather make it that. We will unit test that. But anyway, for now, let's just say if it's greater than, if, or rather, let's say the deposit amount is greater than 0. Okay, so let's see if I'm correct here. If it's greater than 0, basically it should come in here. Okay, that's that. If it's greater than 0, then what do you want to happen? So that is our scenario. If the deposit amount is greater than 0, what is our expected behavior? Okay, what needs to happen here if the amount is greater than 0? We need to take the amount, the deposit amount, and add it to the balance, okay? So what is the expected outcome? Increase the account balance by the deposit amount, yes. And as you can see, I'm just brainstorming the name in my head, really. So you guys need to do something of that nature, something that makes sense to you, but should at least be alongside these lines here, okay? So we are testing deposit. I mean, assuming that in your company or wherever where you are developing, okay? Assuming that you have a convention, you're saying, okay, the convention of writing our unit test is this here. We need the, what are we testing, the scenario, and the expected outcome. Assuming that that's what, that's the convention there, then this would make very much sense to somebody that comes in and they want to see, they're like, okay, they're testing the deposit method, and okay, the deposit amount is greater than 0. So, okay, and you can even put when here. When the deposit amount is greater than 0, okay? Increase the account balance by the deposit amount. So already this is adding documentation to your code. So remember that benefit that I told you about? This is it, okay? By just looking at that. Now we move on. We're now gonna start with our triple A there, okay? Our first A. Remember that arrange and then act and then assert. I've explained that on the previous, I think it was part 2. So you guys tune into part 2 in order to understand what I meant by that. So now we're going to go and say var SUT equal to new. What are we testing? Our system under test is bank account. And if you want to know what is SUT and all of that, also go to that part 2, I believe. Okay, so we're going to say 500 here, because we knew that when we said 500 and 500, it gave us 1,000 there before. So we're going to go to our second A. Okay, so our second A, this is where we're actually acting. So we're just going to say SUT dot deposit. What am I depositing? How much am I depositing? I'm depositing about 500 as well here. Okay, and then now it's time for me to act. To assert. We said asserting is the part where we actually now confirming if what we're testing is actually, or rather the functionality that we're testing is doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? So now we're going to say SUT assert. We're going to call the assert class, okay? This is, you can see that it's from X unit there, okay? Assert dot, I'm asserting that, so we're gonna use equals, the equals method, because that's what we wanna check. We wanna check if this amount is equals to that. That's basically that. So, like we said, it takes the expected amount with the actual amount, okay? And then it will compare the two, okay? They need to be equal. So, basically now, the expected is 1,000. I'm expecting it to have 1,000. And then we need now the value, okay? What is the actual value? For me to access the actual value, because we knew that we're increasing the balance, I'll go sut.balance and access that public property there. And then we have that, right? Okay, let's now go and see if that's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Let's now save. Okay, then we go in here, we don't see, we actually seeing test.method. Let me actually go under that test.method and do something of this nature here. Let's do that. I'll comment these out. Okay, so we don't really have any tests now, as you can see. I commented those ones out so we can focus on what we need to focus on. So now we need to run our test here. Okay, how do we go about doing it? This is our test explorer. We don't see our test there. So how do we go about doing it? And why are our tests not appearing here like those other ones were appearing, the ones from the math class, okay? I've explained that to you guys on the, I think, part 2 again. Please go and check that out, that we need to mark this as a fact. So you can see this attribute here, attribute that applies, that is applied to a method to indicate that it's a fact and that should run by test runner. So that's basically what that means. It's supposed to just do that. So as soon as I do that, you guys see, I will say, oh, there we go. Then our test runner say, oh, this guy is actually a test, so I need to view him as that or her as that. Okay, so then our test appears on the test runner and it hasn't been run yet, and as you can see, one not run, so that's what the outcome is, and the test name is there. And some people say, hey, that's very long and everything. Remember, test methods are not going to be referenced, just like we had deposit method and all of that. So having it as long as possible, as long as it makes sense, it's actually a good thing, okay? As long as it makes sense, it's actually a good thing, because you want people to be able to read and make sense of this without even going inside the code itself. All right. So I'm gonna go here. I can either run by going here and say run, or I can either come here and right click and run. So that's basically the two ways I can go about doing it. So I'll say run. So we go in and we wanna see, pardon me. So our test ran and we have a success there, okay? That was very nice, just to have a green right off the bat. But how are we sure that we are testing the right thing? So let's see. Pardon me here. I don't know, something on my throat. Let me just have a little bit of water here. One moment, you guys. And I'm back. Okay, so let's see. This is here. This is where we depositing the money into the account, right? However, we deposited, but the only way for us to know that this here, we testing the right thing, is to go into this deposit method that we're calling. I'm going to right click on it and just go to implementation. We see that this here takes the balance and plus it with the amount. Let's just do this here, just for argument's sake, right? We're gonna go here, assuming that maybe somebody was implementing this, started off by implementing this withdraw method. Then later on, they just copied and pasted and named it deposit and forgot to change the actual sign from negative to positive, okay? Copy and paste error, basically. Avoid them. I always do, but I mean, I always copy and paste at times, and it's very bad, but yeah, you end up running into those issues. So I'm going to right click here and run again. Bam, we have the red for danger there. So we're gonna go back and actually see what is happening here. So assert.equal failure, right? The expected is 1,000. However, we got a 0 because 500 minus 500 is 0. Now, imagine if that was the case now. You wrote the method and then you write a test here. So you will catch this during coding as opposed to catching it in production or whatever the case might be. And that's the reason why, and it's actually benefit number 2, okay? Unit testing allows you or enables you to catch bugs quicker before they reach production. That's benefit number 2. Okay, so now we ran that, okay, and we're like, oh, what is happening here? We're not sure. And then we're like, okay, let's see here. Let's change that to 200 then. We're depositing 2 and we expect it to be what? 700, right? So that's the expectation, and then we go and we save, and then we run again. We're like, okay, I want to see what this thing is doing. And then we see that expected is 1,000. Now I have 3. Then automatically my head say, hey, if I started with that and then now I put this is actually withdrawing than depositing. Oh, okay, let's go see. And then we go into our bank account here and we see, we're like, oh, that's what's happening here. And then now we change that to that. And then we go back. Now we are fixing our so-called bug, right, that we introduced. And then we run that. And we're still having an issue there. And the only reason we're having an issue is because our expected is 1,000 there. So I didn't change that part there. So I need to make this 5 and 5. And then we say save. And then we run this again. And Bob should be my uncle after this here. And I think he is. Okay. That's basically that. Okay. So that's another benefit here. We just fixed the bug. The second benefit that I had mentioned, I don't know if it's second or third, I said that unit testing allow you or enable you to catch bugs that might make their way into production, okay? The other one now, another benefit here is unit testing allow you or enable you to refactor or change your code with confidence. So I just changed the negative to a positive there and everything is okay. But to go even further, we're going to go into our code here and refactor some more now. So if you remember here, we had these here, and I don't even understand why we're having that. So we have if amount is equal to 0, then throw, okay? And then we have if amount is equal to -1, then again we're throwing, okay? So we're not going to do that. We're like seeing, hey, this is silly. What is happening here? So we're probably going to say, okay, if the amount is, what is the minimum amount that you want to deposit? Okay, let's start off by saying that. So the amount needs to be equal to or greater than 10 Rand possibly, unless if your ATM takes coins and you want to do all of that. But for now, I'm just going to say is equal to or greater than let's see, if the amount is greater than 10, let's see, actually no, it's not, let's put a not there. Okay, it's not equal to, let's see, what am I doing here? It's not greater than 10 Rand. What's happening there? If the amount is greater than 10, let's start off by doing this here. Okay. I wonder what is happening there. Why can't I have that not? Okay. See, I even forgot how we go about doing that. If it's greater than. So I'll probably do that. Let's do that there for a second. Okay, if it's greater than that, then we can do something of this nature. Otherwise, we can do that something there. Pardon me there. Doing my playing around with other languages here sometimes, and then you're doing your own thing here. If the amount is greater than 10, then we can do this here. Okay, and then if not, then hey, we're going to go about doing that there. So I think we should just put this in an else just to ensure that we're not always hitting that. So I'm going to take this part here, cut it out. Okay. Right. So basically now, if you think about it, I've been doing a whole lot of other things here. I've changed our code here. Okay. The structure of our code, everything basically about our code, like kind of changed like massively. Okay. What do I mean by that? That is called refactoring. So refactoring is changing your code without actually changing how it works. So, or rather the outcome of what needs to happen. So, but we can change the structure of the code basically. So right now, all I did was I said, if amount is greater than 10, then we can do this. So greater or equal to basically even. So, right, if it's greater or equal to 10, we can do this. Okay, else we just need to do that because, hey, these people here need to deposit the right amount here. And this kind of now gives me another idea to say, hey, zero deposit exception. So that's not really now representing what we need to do here. So then what we're going to do is I'm going to go into our exceptions there. So that zero deposit here will not work anymore. So we will need to say, let's see, insufficient deposit exception, something of that nature. I don't know. You guys will think about it, and that's that. And then I can okay, and then lucky for me, Visual Studio did that for me, and then we can say the deposit amount must be greater than 10 Rand or something like that. That must be equal or greater than 10 Rand. Equal or greater than 10 Rand. Or you can even say the minimum deposit amount is 10 Rand. So however way you want to look at it. So at the moment, I'm not really too finicky about that. I want to just focus on what we need to do here. So now we come in here as well, and we can run our test here and ensure that we're still doing what needs to be done and our test is still passing. So that benefit, more important as well. You can refactor without, or rather you can refactor with confidence. So that's basically what unit testing allows us to do. And I think by that virtue, we are done with this section here, okay? I know it took a little bit longer than it's supposed to, but I'm trying by all means here to cater for everybody here, okay? And for the most part, my target is the people that want to learn the concepts and that want to learn and understand some of these things. Some people might already understand, so this is the beginner level and taking you to an understanding as to why you need unit testing, why they're important, why, okay? If that's not your prerogative, hey, apologies, but until next time, botsa tlhoge.